LCM TV for having us. We are here every Monday at 3 o'clock Pacific Daylight Time. You were listening to music by Sam Houston from his CD Beyond the Crescent Moon. And you can buy the CD online at his website, samhouston.com. It's very good meditation and relaxation music. I love it, and that's why I play it on the show. I want to remind everyone that our nonprofit, A Positive Light in Kelseyville, California, has a Monday night meditation every week at 7 p.m. for an hour, and there's no cost. We are a nonprofit, so we do run on donations, and we appreciate what you can afford to give. Our meditations are insight meditation, loving kindness meditation, sati, which is mindfulness meditation. So we go over a lot of different kinds of meditation, and you can learn a lot from meditation about yourself and how to deal with the rest of the world. The second Tuesday of every month, we hold a 12 in Zen based on Bill Crumbean's book 12 in Zen, and this is based also on the traditional 12 steps, which includes Zen practitioner 12 steps and societal normal 12 steps. And we do a meditation on each step, one progression every month, and pair that with a Buddhist koan, which is a story or parable. And we actually deepen our relationship with our 12 steps that way. We get a lot more out of them. We tell each other what we come up with after the meditation, and it's very interesting. If you have 12 people there, you get 12 different views, and we learn a lot. So I encourage you to look at our website and find out more about those classes. On July 26th, which is a Sunday, I'm holding a Reiki class, and this is an actual class where I'm holding a level 1 teaching. It's certification class. So at the end of this class, you will be certified as a level 1 Reiki practitioner. You do need to pre-register for this class because we are running out of room. The total cost for the class is $125. It includes a workbook that we actually go through and work on. We practice Reiki on each other. You learn about the history, how it works, and at the end of the class you receive a certificate of completion, and you will be a level 1 practitioner. So if you're interested in joining me for that class, please email me or call me. The information will be flashing up throughout the day, and I heard a cell phone, so it distracted me. So you can see how to get a hold of me there with a phone number and my email. And let me know if you're interested in joining me for that Reiki class. I don't hold them very often because I want to make sure that we have enough people to make it worth everyone's while. It's a better class when you have more people because there's more energy, and it's a very powerful class. So let me know if you're interested in that. Also, I'm very excited to announce that Kevin Griffin is coming back to A Positive Light to do a day-long workshop. He'll be joining us on Sunday, November 8th, and it is a day-long from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. He is the author of One Breath at a Time, A Burning Desire, and Buddhism and the 12 Steps, as well as his Laughing Buddha CD, which is music. And he just released his newest book, Recovering Joy. Kevin is one of the leaders of the Mindful Recovery Movement and one of the founders of the Buddhist Recovery Network, excuse me, and is a longtime Buddhist practitioner and 12-step participant. He teaches nationally on the synthesis of these two traditions, and it's a very insightful, wonderful day-long workshop. He will be talking about his new book and the things he can share with us there. He has a lot of insight and great information, so I encourage you to join us for this class. It's, like I said, it's all day, and it's only $50. So very affordable. And Kevin is used to teaching in front of huge groups of people. He has told me he likes coming to our place and teaching day longs because it's smaller. It's more intimate. He can talk to you more on a one-on-one basis and answer questions individually. It's a really cool class, so I really hope you're interested in joining us. Get a hold of me. I'll put you on the list. There will be a deposit to hold your space because I'm sure it will be very popular. It's already filling up. So I encourage you to get a hold of me as soon as you can to make sure that I can reserve your space there. He will be joining me the following day here on Monday, the 9th of November, to be on the show to tell you more about his book. And I'll do an interview for him on the show so you get to know a little bit more about him. But I encourage you to come to the class on the 8th. It should be really informative, very insightful. Kevin's a wonderful man, has a lot of great information to share. So over the last couple of months, I've been talking about the Four Noble Truths, which is part of the meditation practices that were taught in the Buddhist retreats that I've attended. And to kind of simplify things a little bit more, okay, I guess our sound is back on now.
We're back.
Okay, thank you for your patience. We had a sound problem, which happens during live TV. Anyway, so we were discussing the 3 difficult practices, which is a Buddhist practice. And when we talk about the 3 difficult practices, they say, do your best to practice the 3 difficult practices because it's difficult. And we need to do our best to practice them. The 3 practices are, number 1, notice when you're hooked. And when I'm saying hooked, I'm talking about when someone pushes your buttons. Number 2 is do something different. And number 3, making this a daily practice. In the first week, which was a couple of weeks ago, we were talking about the first practice, which is noticing when you're hooked and acknowledging the behavior. So let's say you're in a conversation with somebody and they say something and something just pushed your button. You did not like the way they said something, or maybe they insulted you, but something happened and immediately your button was pushed. In that moment, when you feel that tightening of the chest and that step back and the blood rushing to your head and the adrenaline starts to pump, in that fraction of a moment, that is what we call Shenpa, the Shenpa moment. And my suggestion for the first week was to just notice that. Just take one day and make it a day where you're going to be aware of whenever that happens. And in doing that, it helps you see how many times during the course of a day that comes up. It makes you aware of how sensitive you may be to somebody pushing a button. And once we become aware of it, we can start to realize, I have my buttons pushed a lot more often than I realized. I have this feeling of tightness and being taken back more often than I realized. It's just something to be aware of. There's no judgment in it. There's no need to beat yourself up about it. Just to realize that that button pushing is happening and you're actually having a reaction to it. What normally happens is that you feel a pull to go into a certain direction. If someone has insulted you or called you a name or cut you off in traffic or any number of things, your immediate reaction without thinking may be to just react in a very negative way with a lot of anger or resentment. And this causes a lot of anxiety for yourself because now you're caught up in the shenpa, in the suffering. So what also happens in that is during this whole involvement, this whole chain reaction that happens, we tend to spin a story in our head. And we're starting to say, oh, that person, how could they do that to me? And, you know, before you know it, 15 minutes has gone by and you're still stuck on that story and it's gotten bigger and you're adding fuel to the fire and it's become more of a monster than it was to begin with. So in doing this and reacting in our normal way, we're causing more suffering. The actual button being pushed, the actual feeling that is instantly awakened in you is called shenpa. So my suggestion was to notice it and pause and just say, okay, that's shenpa. And not go along with the normal chain of events, not go along with the normal chain reaction that you normally have. We all have some knee-jerk reactions to things. And we're usually upset with ourselves when we give into it after the fact. And that causes us to be upset with ourselves or more upset with the other person. And this is called suffering, which we're causing with our mind. So if you can be awake in that situation, if you can pause, take a breath, not go down that same old road, just be aware, be awake in that moment and go, ah, shenpa, and let it go. You will learn to not go down the habitual pattern of behavior road. You will begin to stop that pattern. And once you begin to stop a pattern, you're actually beginning to develop another pattern, a more positive pattern. It's the first step in letting go. A lot of people will say to you, well, it's no big deal, why don't you just let it go? But we really hang on to things, and we really get upset about things. And maybe a week later, you're still upset about something. But there's nothing you can do about it. And now because you've been stewing over it for a week, it's gotten really big. And the more you stew over things and the longer the story you spin, the more deeply your behavior patterns are set and the harder it is to stop doing that. So making an effort to just pause and not go down that road causes a lot of discomfort. It's a place we're not used to. It feels really good to lash out sometimes at somebody who's really made us mad. But in the end result of that, we cause ourselves and them a lot of suffering. And sometimes because other people, their families may be suffering. You know, this has an effect on a lot of people besides just us. If we react to someone who said something rude to us because they're having a bad day, we're adding fuel to our fire, we're adding fuel to their fire. Maybe they're going to go home and take it out on their family and now adding fuel to that fire. You know, the chain reaction that we go through can cause other chain reactions. And it causes suffering not only with us, but with other people. So the suggestion of taking that pause is a very important one because it's a beginning step in learning to not cause suffering. It's a beginning step in learning to let go. Because if you don't go down that road to begin with, you won't get caught up in it, and it will be easier to let go. So the second difficult practice is doing something different, and I think this is probably the most difficult thing to do because we're so used to going down our road, because we're so used to the knee-jerk reactions that we just go along with. So doing something different intentionally choosing a different or a fresh behavior is very difficult to do because we don't really know how to do it. We're so used to going down the roads that we go down that we don't even know we're doing it. It's such a habitual pattern that we're not even aware that we're following that pattern. Usually we are acting out of anger, and anger is fear, and often it's disguised as sadness. So when things are based on sadness, you know, sometimes something difficult has happened to us in our life, and it's really hard to face it. And so we don't really know how to deal with it. We tend to go into anger. And our anger can become a really good defense to keep people away from us. It can be a really good defense to not deal with things that we don't know how to deal with. But it's not healthy. And anger causes us a lot of anxiety and suffering. So when you're pausing, you're actually cooling off all this heated anger. You're taking another approach. You're not following your negative emotions. You're not following that chain reaction that you always follow. You're cooling off that anger. You're not going to go along with that anger that's pulling you in and saying, come on, just tell this person off. Even though you really want to and you think it's going to really feel good to do it, in the long run, you're actually causing yourself a lot of suffering. So another thing I hear and another thing I say is live in the moment, because all of our moments make up our life. And if we can have happy moments, then we have a happier life. But it's not always easy to do, because sometimes the moments are very difficult. Sometimes things happen to us or around us that are really difficult to deal with. And living in those moments can be very, very stressful. How do you deal with that when that happens? You know, our natural inclination may be to lash out or to hide. A lot of people will cover up and pull into their shell and hide. So learning to deal with life on life's terms means also learning to deal with the difficult parts of life as well. And by using your intelligent mind, your higher mind, you can do that by not just slipping into your automatic behavior, which can be very childish and defensive, and intentionally using your higher mind and your higher thoughts, taking a pause, stepping back from the immediate reaction that you want to go to, and choosing to react from your higher mind. It can cause a new experience to start to develop, and you can have a direct and immediate experience with what really is happening. Not what you want to happen, but what is happening. And you can ask yourself, do you want to water the seeds of anger and violence and separation? Or do you want to water the seeds of love and understanding and compromise and peace? I think we would really rather live in peace. I think it's a funny thing that we even have to question ourselves on this, but if we live on automatic pilot and just react to things, we tend to go into a negative place. I think people are just naturally defensive because we're bombarded with a lot of stuff that we have to deal with, and we don't always have the tools to deal with it. So stopping and using your higher mind and choosing to react from a loving, open-hearted place will usually develop better reactions from other people. And if it doesn't, then you can walk away from it, because if someone is holding on to the anger that they've started or they're caught in, you don't need to stay caught in it. You can let them stay caught in it, but you don't need to stay there with them. The more you don't give in to your habits, the more you won't be triggered as easily. the more you don't go down those same old pathways, the more you don't want to, the less you'll care about that stuff. You won't really want to be involved in those chain reactions. Once you see that there are options that will lead you into a happier place, where it makes it easier to let go, where you can actually find yourself saying, you know what, I really don't want to get involved with this anger that this person is involved in, so I'm going to step away from it and feel bad for them and wish them well, but I am going to walk away from it and let it go. And in doing that, you're not necessarily making your situation better, but you're certainly not making it worse. And the way that you may be able to make it better is to react in a loving way. And sometimes people can, maybe they're having a really rough day and they don't have the tools to deal with it, and they're lashing out and taking things out on you. Sometimes you can simply ask them, wow, are you okay? You must be having a really hard day. Is there anything I can do to help? In doing that, you're disarming their anger and you're inviting them to open up and use their higher mind to talk about something honestly, something real, something in truth, and take them out of the story they're spinning. And then maybe you can actually have a conversation about what's going on and find a way to fix things instead of pouring kerosene on that spark of Shenpa and making it worse. So over the last couple of weeks we were talking about this, and I'm repeating it again because I think it bears repeating, since we are such habitual creatures, and since we tend to go down our patterns, our roads of habit, our patterns are our patterns, and we're stuck in them. Sometimes our patterns and our pathways are really deep. It's hard to get off that track. But if you can use the simple tools of stopping yourself and pausing and taking a breath and choosing to not get involved in the anger and choosing to not allow yourself to pour kerosene on that spark of Shenpa, and choosing to react to the situation in a loving way, you can actually change not just your behavior, but you're offering something to someone else that they see. And now they're experiencing it. And maybe they can learn. Maybe next time they won't lash out. So you're definitely affecting the interconnectedness of the world. And we are all interconnected. And we all do have an effect on each other. And some days it's really hard not to be negative. But if you smile when you don't feel like smiling, you will make yourself happier. You'll release endorphins in your brain. You'll feel better. If you see someone in anger and you don't get caught up in it, and you show them some compassion and understanding and some options to react differently, sometimes you can make a big difference in that person's day, and that will make a difference in someone else's day, and so on and so on. So the interconnectedness of our world really is important, and our behavior is important to it. Last week's suggestion that I left you with was practicing letting go of the storylines. When you got involved in something, when a situation came up, you got cut off in traffic, or someone did something rude to you or said something hurtful, just pause and let go of it and not get involved. And sit in that discomfort, because what comes up usually is our normal pattern of reaction that we really want to go to. If we don't go there, it's an uncomfortable place. It's like somebody is just really tugging you to go there and you're resisting it. And you may not have another go-to place, and it's an uncomfortable place to sit. But when you sit in that uncomfortable place, you're getting used to letting go. You're getting used to not going down the pathway. So if you could have taken any time last week, and if you didn't, it's okay, because you can do it this week, to just pause, not go down your typical knee-jerk reaction place, and just sit in the discomfort of being somewhere you're not used to being. Being in the discomfort of not reacting the way you always react. And by letting go of the storyline, you're opening up to the truth. You're not being sucked into some story that you or someone else is devising. You're actually opening up to the truth of what's really happening. And you're allowing your higher mind and your open heart to lead you to a more mature relationship with the world and the people in it. It's a happier place to be. And from doing that, you're creating new and firmer ground beneath your feet. When you're caught up in the storyline and you're having an argument with someone and you're really getting sucked into places you don't want to go, it's causing you suffering. But you'll notice also that the ground is feeling very slippery beneath your feet. You don't feel like you've got solid ground. When you're opening up to the truth and you're looking at the situation with an open heart and a higher mind, and you're choosing a more positive way to react, or not reacting at all, and sitting in an uncomfortable place, you're actually building very firm ground beneath your feet. It's actually a very comfortable place to be after a while, and you'll wonder why you weren't there all along. So we're going to take a commercial break for 2 minutes, and then I'll be back, and we'll talk a little bit more about the second step of the 3 difficult practices, choosing fresh behavior, and some suggestions on how to do that. So hold on, we'll be back in a couple of minutes.
You're invited to participate in a true multimedia experience coming to a home near you. LCM TV is bringing Lake County into the new millennium with news, live broadcast, information, music, talk shows, and local programming, all streaming in high definition online and soon to be on your Roku box. Join us at lcm-tv.com or be a part of our studio audience. You can also watch the shows at lakecomagazine.com as we provide programming to inform, enlighten, and maybe even enrage you. On Lake County Magazine Talk Show with Terry and Pete the Tax Guy, Wednesday mornings at 9 a.m. Like racing? Try the Checkered Flag Show, hosted by Ace Naylor on Tuesdays at 7 p.m. All ages and divisions in regional and national fills. Joni Lane brings a positive light to you every Monday at 3 p.m. Pasha Space brings an international flair as they discuss ecological, health, and social issues in Haiti with people around the world. End up your week with positive, conscious sounds on Saturday at 9 a.m. with Sister T on the Bridge. This show is also simulcast on KMEC 105.1 FM in Ukiah. Our latest show, LCM TV News, is brought to you live Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at noon, and rebroadcast at 6:30 p.m. and noon daily, Tuesday, Saturday, and Sunday, featuring national, regional, and local news, weather, and sports. We have it all here for you on your local TV station, LCM TV. Join us online and soon on Roku, giving you access to all the best Lake County has to offer. We are LCMTV.com, your multimedia connection. Tune in for the fun. It's live TV at its best.
Hi, and welcome back to A Positive Light. I am your host, Joni Lane. Before the break, we were talking about the 3 difficult practices. The first difficult practice, noticing when we're hooked, meaning noticing when our buttons are pushed. The second of doing something different, choosing a fresh behavior instead of our same old patterns. And the third, making this a daily practice. I think becoming aware of our habits, becoming aware of what pushes our buttons, is a good place to begin. Secondly, choosing to act differently or react differently is very important because we're beginning new habits. We're beginning to cultivate a new behavior. And when you cultivate a new behavior, you're opening yourself up to more positive living, less stress, more happiness. And it's easier to let things go, because I think we all hear that saying, oh, just let it go. But it's very difficult to do sometimes. So in working with the three difficult practices, we're actually learning how to find ways to change our behavior to be more positive, and find ways to let things go that really don't matter so much. Last week's suggestion was to pause and sit in the discomfort of not knowing what to do. I always react in this way, and now I'm not going to, but I don't really know what to do. And it's a really uncomfortable place to be. It's a foreign place. But it's a really good place to be, because we're not making that pathway that we always go down any deeper. There are actually neural pathways in our brain that we don't even, we're automatically, we just go down those paths. And the more we use them, the more hardwired that becomes in our brain. But by not using them, the less hardwired they become. The less easy it is to just go there. And the more we create new paths, the easier those new pathways are to go down. So I hope I said that right. I think I'm not saying it right, but I think you also get the idea of what I'm trying to say. Part of what Western culture has a difficult time with is self-deprecation. We seem to be really good at beating ourselves up. We seem to be really good at finding our faults and being really hard on ourselves. So the suggestion I'm going to make for this week is, if you can practice the first two suggestions that I made, great. But if you can add this suggestion to it, I think it will help too. Practicing causing no harm. And in Buddhism, when you're talking about no harm, generally we're talking about no harm to ourselves. It's usually practicing kindness and compassion towards yourself. And it's difficult for people in the Western culture to do this because we're taught that that is selfish. But in the Asian cultures, they laugh at that because they know that you can't really be kind to other people until you learn how to be kind to yourself. You can't truly love and appreciate other things until you truly love and appreciate yourself. So practicing no harm is practicing compassion and kindness toward yourself. And how do you work with the anger that comes up when you feel anger? How do you work with the anger and the resentments and the addictions and the irrational behavior? When we repeatedly act in a certain way, we are being habitual creatures. When we act in a certain way that is habitual and is unhealthy, and we do it anyway, even though we know it's unhealthy, that is a definition of addiction. Now, addiction, you can be addicted to happy things too. Addiction is not always a negative word, but when you're causing yourself suffering and unhappiness, it can be a very negative word. But if we get stuck on the negatives, we tend to beat ourselves up. By using our higher mind, our intelligent mind, we can choose kindness and understanding and forgiveness and compassion. We are very intelligent people. We are given high intelligence. We don't always use it because actually Okay, well, whenever the sound goes out, our wonderful engineer Mark puts Sam Houston's music back on. So we're sorry about that. We had a little interruption, part of live TV. But what we were talking about is using our higher mind and choosing kindness and understanding and forgiveness, and going to our natural wisdom and our open hearts as a place to react from. So this not only is when your buttons get pushed, I'm saying yes, go ahead and stop and pause, and if you react, try to react from a higher place. Try to be a compassionate, loving person. But also, don't beat yourself up if you don't do that. You need to be compassionate toward yourself. You need to be understanding toward yourself and loving toward yourself, because you're learning something new. And it's not easy. It's very difficult to fall out of our patterns and create new ones. So when you catch yourself and you go, oh darn it, I did it again, shoot, why do I keep doing that? And then we automatically go into those places of criticism. And we start berating ourselves and being very difficult on ourselves. It's not helping us feel better and cause happiness. When we get a button pushed, and if we find we're reacting to it in a negative way, just go, oh, okay, I'm doing it again, okay, and laugh and make a joke and give yourself a break and take a breath, and you can say, okay, I'm going to start over, and smile and try again. All you can do is the best you can do every day, and that includes learning new behavior. I've been doing meditation for more than 25 years, and I get caught in my Shenpa very often. I notice it, and sometimes I do beat myself up, and then I say, oh, okay, I beat myself up again. I'm not going to beat myself up for beating myself up. I'm going to take a break and laugh at it because I know my patterns, and start over. And sometimes that means making an amend, making an apology for my behavior and laughing about it and starting over. So you have to understand that getting caught in your self-criticism is a form of Shenpa. Getting caught in your defeatist attitude toward yourself is Shenpa. You're causing yourself unhappiness. So there's so many patterns that we fall into, and they're deep patterns. They're very difficult to fall out of and to create new ones. But we have to start. I look at young children, and they're learning how to socialize. They learn what works and what doesn't work, and they learn it pretty quickly. And it's not all the best behavior, but they learn through survival what works. We are no different. But the older we get, the more ingrained our behavior patterns are, and the more difficult they are to change. So if we tell our children, you know, sweetheart, it's not okay to act like that, and this is why, we're explaining to them and we're helping them understand that there's other options that are more kind and compassionate. But do we do that to ourselves? Do we talk to ourselves like a little kid that needs some compassion and understanding? I think we should. I think we should. I think we should act a little bit more kind toward ourselves. So remember that these suggestions that I'm giving you are suggestions that are meant to be tools to help you understand different ways that you might change your behavior. They're really not meant to make you aware of the things you're doing wrong or badly. There's really no room to identify Shenpa as another inadequacy, because it's not. It's human behavior. It's not an inadequacy. It's human behavior that can be changed into a positive behavior that causes happiness instead of sadness or frustration or anger or suffering. So noticing when you get caught in the Shenpa is really good news, because you're noticing something, you're becoming aware of it, and that opens a door, an opportunity to make a change. So you've become aware of how to begin to make a change. You've become aware of what's causing you unhappiness. So it is really good news to notice when you're caught in the Shenpa. And making a choice of a fresh way to act is something, sometimes it's like trying on new clothes. Sometimes you're not sure which direction to go. You're not quite sure how to approach a situation. But you know something needs to be said. So you can try things on. But I think if you're coming from an open heart and using your higher intelligence and giving yourself a break and actually taking a breath and pausing and calming down, I think you're probably going to come from a good place, and you may be able to develop that over time by practicing it. One of the things that I suggest in order to become aware of our options and different behavior is to do meditation. And meditation, metta is Sanskrit. It means loving kindness. In the Zen tradition, Maitri is the word that means to cultivate and nurture your loving kindness toward yourself. So when you talk about that in Buddhism, you're generally talking about self-love and self-kindness, self-compassion. Maitri is loving yourself and giving yourself a break. Be human, but along with your humanness, you're a lot of things. And they're all very lovable, even though some may need to be changed. Meditating on an inner state is a very important part of learning how to change your behavior. Meditating on your inner state is a form of vipassana meditation or insight meditation. As I stated earlier, anger is fear, and it's often disguised in sadness. And it's often very difficult to face, so we don't know how to deal with it. But it is often also the truth behind the knee-jerk reactions. So you can find some of the answers to where this comes from through meditation. And acknowledging the Shenpa can help you see why you act the way you do. So it's a beginning. It's noticing the Shenpa, noticing when the button is pushed, is a good place to take your meditation to. So bring that into your meditation and take a look at that particular button that was pushed, the situation, without getting involved in it. Just look at it. Be a bystander, observing it. And try to figure out where that came from. What part of your psyche did that come from? What's the deeper meaning behind all that? Once you start to uncover where these things come from, what your behavior began from, you can identify it through mindfulness and say, oh, I get where that came from. That's totally not related to what just happened. It reminded me of something subconsciously on a different level, and I reacted to it. So when you're practicing your insight meditation and you're bringing these things to the forefront of your mind and you're looking at them objectively without beating yourself up, you're learning a lot about who you are and what your other options are. So meditation can help you look at your heartbreaks, and they can be anything from, as a child, someone taking your toy away from you, to having some real big loss in your life. As a child or as an adult, at any time in your life, loss is something that causes deep scars. Sometimes it's loss of innocence, sometimes it's loss of a particular material object. But loss is loss, and we have a very difficult time dealing with it. Sometimes we were raised in an angry home, and that caused us to shut down or lash out. So when something happens in our life that pushes that button, we react the way we react because of our childhood, because of our past. And in using meditation, you can identify these things without reliving them. You don't have to relive the situation. You can look at it at a distance. So when you look at the whole picture, say there is a memory that's difficult for you, and you really don't want to get involved and relive the situation again. You can step back, and I know a lot of people have suggested what they do is they look at the world at a distance. So they actually see the situation on the world, on the planet in the distance, and they're not involved in it that way. They're just looking at it objectively, not emotionally involved in it. It helps you decide whether you want to hold on to the anger or the sadness that's associated with that. It helps you see that it's in the past and you don't need to deal with it every minute of every day now. Also, some of the things that we get upset about are very trivial, and we get really caught up in it. And maybe somebody at work said something to you that was really hurtful, and you're still stewing about it 2 weeks later. If you take that into your meditation and look at it at a distance, often you will see how trivial it is, how you realize it's really not your problem, and that that person has a problem. I mean, you don't need to take it on. You don't need to get involved in it. You can separate yourself from it. So meditation can bring a freedom to you that maybe you don't have. Maybe you're really a slave to these buttons being pushed. Maybe you're really a slave to the reactions that you always have, and the anger and the knee-jerk reactions that you always have. And you're always in this mood, and you're carrying this stuff around with you. And you're not happy being that way. If you do meditation and you look at things objectively at a distance and you let them go, they're going to be there, but you don't have to get involved with them. It does bring you a sense of freedom. It brings you a freedom, a weight can be lifted, and you can also see that a door opens up that allows you to choose higher thinking and a compassionate, open heart. And the compassionate, open heart is easier to get to when you're not angry. So loving yourself can be difficult because we are really good at taking inventory and all the things we don't like about ourselves. And we're really good at hanging on to that stuff and saying, I'm a bad person because. But actually, the past is the past, and we aren't there anymore, and you really don't have to drag it around with you. You really can be a good person in this moment. You really can love who you are, because right this very second, you're a very good, loving person. And right this very second, you're a very good, loving person. Some of the things we do may not act very loving, but that was then, even if it was a moment ago. You don't have to continue to be that way. You don't have to continue to react that way. And you don't have to continue to take inventory on the things you don't like about yourself. You can start taking inventory on the things you like. You can start opening up your heart and acting the way you want to act by actually putting some effort into it, by actually not going down the easy path of destruction that we're used to. It takes some work, but it's really a lot easier than it sounds. Once you start doing it and you realize how good it feels, it just becomes a new habit. So if you find yourself getting swallowed up in sadness, sadness can swallow us up. If you have depression, don't stop taking your medication, but try doing some of these things to let go of the sadness. Try stepping back from it. Try reminding yourself of all the good things that you have and are and will do. Try making a plan. You know what? The next time this person at work does these things that always bothers me, I'm going to try really hard to react this way. So try things on. Try out new ways of doing things. See how they feel. See what the reactions are. Sometimes it's very experimental. But it's always a great feeling when you find something that works and it's simple. One of the things I wanted to mention too is allowing yourself to be in the uncomfortable moments of Shenpa can allow a door to open that shows you what your inner states are. Your inner states of mind, and I say plural inner states of mind because we have so many going on at one time, are really normal and natural. And we're all going to think. We're all going to think all the time. And when people come to me in the meditation classes and they say, I can't meditate, I can't stop thinking, I'm thinking, well, good, that means you're not dead. You know, we all think. We're not going to not think. And that's nothing to beat yourself up about. It means you're a human being with thoughts. If you're able to step back from that for a minute and put it at a distance and observe your thoughts, and just say, okay, there's a thought, and let it go. If you can't let it go, it's okay. You don't need to beat yourself up. Remember, we're practicing compassion. We're practicing being nice to ourselves. We're practicing Maitri. It allows you to try on different behaviors. So if you can't come to my meditations on Monday night at 7, I want you to look for meditation centers near you where you can begin to practice some mindfulness, where you can have some instruction on how to begin to change your thought patterns, how to begin to look at your thoughts for thoughts as they are. They're nothing more than thoughts. When we get caught up in stories, they become a lot more than thoughts. When we start adding kerosene to the spark of Shenpa, they become roaring fires. They become very angry places. And that's not a good, happy place to be. So by choosing fresh behavior and fresh reactions, you can begin to take the steps that will heal your spirit. And in doing that, you can become kinder toward yourself and kinder toward other people. And this, of course, affects our interconnectedness to each other by being kind. We can look at these moments of Shenpa as opportunities to begin a healthy relationship with our sadness or anger by acting differently. So this week, practice compassion and love toward yourself. And as you begin to learn new and fresh behavior, you'll see that some things work really well and some things don't, and you can just drop the things that don't without beating yourself up, without any criticism. Try to leave the criticism out of it and allow yourself to be human and allow yourself to open up your heart and use your higher mind to react differently on purpose. The more you do positive behavior on purpose, the more you are creating a pathway that you can more easily follow. And then you will find that you are happier. And I think that's our goal, isn't it? To find places where we can be happier. So if you want to watch any of the shows that I've done previously on this topic or other topics, all of the shows are archived on my website. There's a tab on the website that says archived TV shows, and they're all on there, and feel free to go over them, take some notes. And you don't have to take my suggestions, because that's all they are, is suggestions. Maybe they may mean something different to you. Maybe one of my suggestions will make you think of something different that might work. I'm hoping that some of these suggestions will help you in some way. And if that opens up a door that works for you, great. But I do suggest you find a meditation center that will help you with mindfulness, because I think that's a big key in all of this, learning how to use our mind in a healthy way. I'm going to remind you once again that LCM TV is the station that you're listening to. Thank you very much, LCM TV, for having us every Monday at 3 o'clock. And Monday night meditation begins at 7 every week. There is no cost. We work on donations. All this information can be found on the website, apositivelight.com. If you're interested in joining the Level 1 Reiki class on July 26th, please contact me, get a hold of me, call me, email me, and let me know, and we'll discuss how you can make that happen. It is by reservation, so I need to know ahead of time if you're going to be there, because the class does fill up. And Tuesday night, second Tuesday of every month, we have 12 and Zen, which is also no cost, but donations are appreciated. The Level 1 Reiki class will be a cost of $125. It is all day with a workbook and a certificate of completion. And on November 8th, please let me know that you want to come to Kevin Griffin's day-long workshop, Recovering Joy. And his book, Recovering Joy, is his newest book. It's a great book. I'm reading it right now. I'm getting a lot out of it. Kevin is a very insightful guy. He's got a lot of good information. Very helpful. Meditation teacher. Often does spirit rock meditations, but he teaches throughout the country. So this is only $50 for his class. Please let me know right away if you want to attend. It is filling up. And again, go to my website if you have any questions. Thank you again for joining us, and I will see you next Monday at 3 o'clock with some more suggestions and ideas on how to create some happiness, more happiness in your life and in the lives of the people around you. Thank you, and take care of yourself. Be good to yourself. Love who you are, because remember, you are a beautiful, loving person. And I'll see you next week.